workshop in our executive skill building series on your journey to becoming a much more blissful broker. I could not be more excited to have you here to talk about external motivators today. These include timers, lights, music, you name it. They are really, really handy little tools for helping to break up the day, add a little bit more whimsy, maybe, and to help keep us on task and focused so that we get to lay our head down at night feeling really proud of the consistent progress that we are making towards our more meaningful goals and ultimately feeling more fulfilled, right? That's what I always want for you, is to have more joy, more fulfillment, and just more meaningful progress on a daily basis from your business, but also your life, so that you can look back one day and feel like you really did this thing, okay? So let's make sure that you have your action plan all printed out and ready to go, and we can get started. As always, I am your instructor, Sarah Leighton. I have the unapologetic voice behind bestrealestatewriter.com, but more than that, my friends, I am actually the ghost creator behind many of your favorite coaches and real estate training programs throughout the country and several other countries aside from the United States, including Canada and Australia. And I am so proud to finally be stepping out of my own shell again and be back in front of all of you, teaching and sharing a lot of the harder, more vulnerable lessons that I've learned in scaling my business over the last decade. So I'm really honored to have you here. You could learn this from plenty of other people besides myself, and the fact that you have chosen to be here and learn with me as we grow together really means the world. So let's have enough of that. You can read more about me in your action plan. And I will say, by the way, that if you haven't already, please do head over to bestrealestatewriter.com/groups and check out the communities that I have available for you to further enrich your learning. And I've also included, as always, a collection of handy links, including the one to go grab this month's juicy freebies. They rotate in and out from month to month, so you never know what kind of goodies you might find there. I always encourage you to check back frequently and download them all. So let's dive right in. Okay, and start talking about why it is so valuable to be able to utilize these external motivators like music or timers. Now, if you were with me for the Automating Reminders mini workshop, then some of this is going to sound a little bit familiar. In fact, as we continue throughout the series, many of the themes and ideas and tips and tricks are going to be repeated so that you do actually internalize them, and it's that much easier for you to retain them and start implementing them. Repetition is a really important part of learning, and I use it a lot. In fact, I also teach my clients, my content marketing and strategy clients, that they are usually like 99.9% of the time not repeating themselves enough. Everyone thinks that every single piece of content has to be totally original, but the reality is, in interest-based media, which is how the algorithms are designed to operate today in 2026 when I'm recording this, well, that requires tons of repetition with tiny little tweaks in order to reach as many customer segments as possible. So put that little content strategy feather in your cap for a rainy day. And as always, feel free to ask me more about that in the comments. And of course, you can always book a call with me to talk more about that and how to implement that into your own strategy. So Let's talk about why these external motivators like music or timers are so important and how they have helped me to get so much more done over the years, including days when I would be able to write, upwards of 17,000 words before AI ever hit the market. So these have been some of my all-time favorite tools, and I'm really excited to share them with you. Now, external motivators, they basically help us to trigger our focus. Okay, so they also, by doing so, in a sense, allow us to save some of our cognitive functioning energy and maintain energy overall. And I find that they are really helpful for creating a sense of urgency that you can use as like a positive stressor. And in doing so, I highly recommend that you kind of get playful with it and maybe even gamify that experience for yourself in your mind. I'm really big on trying to take everyday tasks in our business that we don't love and bring a little bit more whimsy to them, which is why there is so much whimsical design in all of my content and curriculum, okay? Because just because we're doing some of the more technically boring work doesn't mean it can't be beautiful and engaging and enthralling in that way. And psychologically, what I have found is that it actually, by making these experiences feel more whimsical and enjoyable and visually engaging, it actually does help to foster better completion rates and end results. So I hope you're experiencing that as well. Now, these alarms, or not alarms, I guess you would say, just like music or timers, right? The external motivators, they definitely help, I believe, to add a more structure to the day as well. And a lot of us as solopreneurs or entrepreneurs, especially if we're working from home, it can be hard to have that sense of structure that maybe provided some level of comfort when we had a W-2 job, which most of us did at some point in our lives before getting into this. If not, then at least when you were in school, you had the same thing, right? Think about the alarm bell that, like, in order to change classes, it's the same kinds of concepts that we're using right here. So it's not as if this is completely foreign to your brain and you've never experienced anything like this before. In fact, that familiar programming switch has already been built into your brain from school, which is why it's going to work so well. So why might you struggle with this? Well, you could struggle to focus without background stimulation. This is me all day long. I will say I'm getting better. And sometimes my husband will like walk into the room and be like, whoa, it's quiet. Why is it quiet? You're being weird. And that's simply because as long as he's known me, I always needed noise in the background for, oh gosh, before he and I got together, I would say for probably like the first 6-7 years of my business or something like that. I always used TV in the background, and I would use like typically like old sitcom reruns or like just shows that I just did not care about, just because I needed that noise in the background because I grew up in an environment where there was always that conversation and stuff like that. So it actually soothes some part of my brain. But then I discovered lo-fi and Pomodoros. Game changer. If you've never heard of it before, there's so many different channels. One of my favorites is the Sherry formula. Highly recommend you check her out. It's SHERRY formula. And she basically uses some of my favorite like lo-fi tracks along with Pomodoro timers that you can pick like different lengths, whether you want 20-minute sessions or whatever it might be. So I have probably, you guys, like 20 or 30 different lo-fi channels that I'm subscribed to just on YouTube alone, which is pretty wild. Because I've just listened to them so much, and I've actually created my own playlist of lo-fi. If you check out my Wildly Creative TV channel, there is a whole series where I design digital products to lo-fi music, and a lot of people find them relaxing in a sense, but also like use it as like a co-working motivator. So if you're looking for something like that, check it out. I'll drop the link. Anyway, so if you're one of those people that feels like you need some kind of like noise in the background all of the time, I'm talking to you. You belong here. Hello, friend. Now, maybe you don't use timers or music, and you also have the sensation that your work sessions feel endless. Like you just go until you feel like you're just going until you can't go anymore. That is going to add up to a sense of burnout and resentment in your business. I promise you, sooner or later. So I'm also really glad to have you here. Now, you could also be someone that gets distracted by music instead of using it to focus. And if so, welcome, my friend. And you might also feel like you just don't know what kind of external motivators would work well for you. And that's okay too. We can work with that. You belong here. Welcome. I am so happy to have you here as part of this whole series. I highly encourage you to check them all out, and I hope that you actually grab these during a sale or something when you were able to grab all of them in bulk in a big bundle. It's always the best. Always keep your eye out for the bundles, and make sure that you're following me on Instagram, Wildly Creative Sarah, so that you can see when those flash sales happen on weekends and stuff like that. Okay, so let's identify your best external motivators. Why don't we? Okay. So there's 4 options here: music, timers, physical movement, and sound-based cues. I want you to take some time now and actually just sort of like think back and reflect on which ones you have experience with and don't have experience with, and which work best for you. So like with music, that could be the lo-fi, like I was just talking to you about. A lot of other people really enjoy just classical, or they might use like the white noise nature sounds, or just general white noise, or basically anything instrumental. Whenever there's no lyrics, it's much better for helping the brain to focus, which is why all of those options include music without lyrics. Now, maybe you're someone that still wants to tap into the sound-based cues. So there's lots of, awesome YouTube videos for this too. White noise, again, great option. ASMR. A lot of people are super addicted to these. I don't use them for focus, but sometimes when I'm just trying to like relax. And then there's also like, if you're someone like myself that grew up in a situation where there was a lot of noise and background noise and you're used to that, then there are videos like, just a cafe with like the background chatter and the dishes and like all of that kind of stuff. And you could just, they'll go on for like 12 hours or whatever. You can just put those on and sit down and use your other external cues to help you break up the work sessions. Speaking of which, timers. So you can use Pomodoros, which are like a set. Think of like when you do sets in the gym or something. So it might be a set of like 8 20-minute sessions broken up by 5-minute breaks. So the timer will will start, you'll do 20-minute session, and then it'll let you know to take the 5-minute break and then to start again, and so on and so forth. And it really, like I said, it helps to structure and break up the day and keep you from fiddling with things that are never going to make a difference, that, become really easy time wasters, which are activities like, video editing, or like just designing graphics in Canva, especially if you're not a graphic designer. And then, of course, physical movement, I actually think is super underutilized. I like to use it at least a couple times a day, and it's super simple. Just get up, stretch, move around a little bit, maybe drink some water. Fidgeting tools can be used here too. It's really about what works for you. And a walking break, I've like, believe me, I have my giant mug of London Fog, which is probably like my fourth cup too many today. So like, when I tell you I love caffeine as much as the next workaholic, I do, but at the same time, we can't just like pound it incessantly all day, every day, right? It's not good for us. So I also like to use things like water or a walk, with some upbeat music, in order to rejive my energy when I'm feeling a bit of a lull. Okay. All right, so I want you to take a minute in your action plan and actually write out, putting pen to paper for yourself cognitively to actually absorb this. Which motivator will you experiment with today? Not tomorrow, not later in the week, today. Which one is going to be your experimental strategy? And the key word there, my love, is experimental. This is playfulness. There is no pressure here. There is no performance necessary. Okay, we are having an experiment. Okay, after you have noted that down, you're going to move on. And I want you to write how it is that you plan to prevent distractions while using this motivator. Okay, so this is like the scientific method light. Okay, I'm a big time scientific method junkie. Okay, but we're lightening it up a little bit. All right, so how are you planning to prevent these distractions? I actually feel like this question is so powerful, just in helping to draw our own awareness to this and set the intention. Sometimes we don't necessarily define this in our thought process, and that's how balls can get dropped, even though we feel like we've thought it through. So there's just something about, putting this pen to paper here and watching ourselves write the words out, and recognizing them and reading them to ourselves. So powerful. And then next, I want you to think about for a moment and work out which type of work is best suited for using your external motivators. This is going to depend ultimately on what it is that you do, whether you're a broker, a team leader, an agent, a transaction coordinator, a lender, you're in title, I don't know. This is under the Blissful Broker series, but at the end of the day, so many of my lovely members and audience come from all corners of the real estate space and small businesses. So wherever you're coming from, I'm so happy to have you here. So grateful that you're doing this with me. And I think it's important that we take this process and don't try to apply a wide brush to everything, but we just get really specific and intentional with exactly which tasks we're going to apply them to. I think sometimes where we fall down with new things like this is exactly that we try to take a new strategy that maybe works best for some areas of our business, or personal life, and with a wide brush we try to apply it to all, and then when it starts to fail in some areas, we use that as evidence that it doesn't work. uh, when that's not quite the case, or an excuse to quit this new thing that we're trying that might be a little challenging, right? So those are false results in my mind. And we're not looking for that. So I just want you to take a moment and be intentional about that part as well. And then finally, today's reflection question is, how can you use external motivators consistently without relying on them too much? This is really important to me. If you've been following me for a while, that you know that like codependency is a big part of my rhetoric and what I am always trying to work with my clients to avoid with their own clients and in their messaging and in their teams and all of these things. I'm all about healthy collaboration uh, versus codependency, which can breed all kinds of toxicity into our business relationships and our personal relationships, right? So it's really important that we take these tools, and we're just curating and refining these tools and playing with them and picking out which ones we like and which ones work best for us, for our toolbox to have as we scale the business in a sustainable way, preventing ourselves from burning out on repeat. That said, there are options. You don't have to use the same tool for everything. Not every situation will call for it. But I do hope that you will come back to this little mini workshop and exercise every time that you find some area of your business or even personal life that you'd like to apply these to for more consistency and ultimately more progress, so that you can, let's be honest, go to bed at night feeling like, hey, I got this. It's in the bag. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other, and everything that is meant for me is on the way. That's what I want for you. That is already the truth, whether you can accept it or not. But I hope that you will use the included affirmations in order to start believing just how much abundance is meant for you. Thank you for joining me for another mini skill building workshop in our executive skills series. I can't wait to see you in the next one.